welcome to yet another edition of This is African Football. And my name is Benjamin Leshuru. I'm so glad to finally be invited to this great gathering of these gentlemen that have African football in their blood. I'm standing in for Elasto Capoeja, who hopefully will be back next week in the seat that I'm in. A couple of gentlemen alongside me then, starting on my left-hand side here, Mr. Brian Mofokeng. Thank you so much for your time and affording us your knowledge this evening, Brian.
Thank you very much, my kind sir. I thought you were going to say, come in on the left corner, weighing in at 200. Undisputed, undefeated.
Ding, ding, ding. Okay. And Uganda, stand up. The Cranes, former Cranes of Uganda defender, Mr. Timothy Batabaire, also plied his trade for a long time here in South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us, Tim.
Thank you, Benji, and you're welcome.
In fact, yes, I'm the one joining you.
You're welcome.
Okay, gentlemen, there's a lot of issues that we're going to be touching on this evening. As a Thursday evening, we always touch on African football and cover everything that has to do with the game on the continent. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things, news that has broken since last week, since the last time this gathering was here. There's been Micho, the Orlando Pirates coach, who has quit his job. And there's been Micho, who has been appointed the coach of Zamalek. So we're going to be touching on that. And what does he leave at Orlando Pirates? And obviously, judging by what we've seen so far, the ship is in murky waters, I think, Brian. And also, we're touching on several other countries like Botswana. I think it's good news that we're going to be talking about in Botswana. We're touching on Zimbabwe. What the hell is happening in Zimbabwean football? It's been breaking news after breaking news. The mudslinging between Felton Kamambo as well as his predecessor, Philip Chiangwa, in as far as the struggle of power in ZIFA and how this affects Philip Chiangwa as the head of the Council of Southern African Football Associations. But, gentlemen, before we get onto all of that, we begin on a rather sad note. We woke up to the news of the passing of former Ghana striker, the Black Stars of Ghana striker, Junior Agogo. And I mean, at 40 years old, desperately young there, Tim.
Yeah, it's another sad day, cruel hand of death. It's visiting, the football fraternity once again. It's a pity at that age after retiring, that's the time to try and, give reflection to what this beautiful game of football is. Watching it, not as a player, but as a spectator, as somebody interested in something you played as you used as a job. Is very sad, and our condolences go out to the family and the football lovers of Ghana.
Anything, Brian?
I don't know. I've met him a few times. I remember the first time I met him, Ghana was playing against Lesotho in Bloemfontein, and we had a short interview just before it was the World Cup qualifiers. They played the very bubbly guy. Quiet, but he knew what he needed to do on the field of play, and that was the main thing. And I remember I was also part of the Ghanaian Olympic team at some stage as they played to what's going to play the Olympics. So he was a good striker. I mean, he didn't play much for the senior team. I think he just played over 20 clubs or
just
so.
about 27.
Yeah. And I mean, but if you look at the return from a goal point of view, you realize there was so much coming out from his side. And he had a good stint, I mean, in England in particular. I mean, from if you're talking about some of for Forest, all of those he played for.
Sheffield
Wednesday. So he's done very well. But it's something that you never get used to is somebody passing away. We always wake up and say,
No matter how
could have
often
done
it
so
happens.
much. You know, it just condolences going out to all the people of Ghana and also the family members and friends who knew him very well. I think another huge loss for football on the continent.
All right. Obviously, also condolences from us here at hashtag Front Football, and you can send your messages of condolences to the family and the entire football fraternity of Ghana. Right then, gentlemen, let's get on to the business of the day and start with Orlando Pirates. All right. This is Friday evening last week. You minding your own business, Tim. And just out of nowhere, breaking news. Micho is resigning as he wants to put the club ahead of his own needs. And I'm quoting Orlando Pirates' Twitter account. What goes through your mind?
First and foremost, a press release at around 10:30, 11 o'clock in the night is something, that rang a bell when I heard of it. Yes, I've known of the fact that the mom has been ill for some time, but she has been ill, but he has been coaching. And so when the issue is like, putting my personal issues, second best to the national team, something rang into the bell. But previously I had made comment that there was interest from the so-called Zamalek, and he categorically stated that his focus is with Pirates. So, and then if Zamalek wanted him, then they should contact Dr. Ivan Koza. So for me, in the football circles, there was always, an indication that he may be on his way out. But I really didn't believe that he could walk out of his contract. Really, that really shocked me. I've known him for some good time. But again, when it came about that the following day he was out of the country, it wasn't very surprising because I've known him to be very smart, but this one caught me by surprise that he could leave Pirates. So at this time in point, I think.
But you mentioned the fact that his mother was ill for some time. Could it be, and he was still coaching?
Yeah,
he had no problem continuing to coach at Pirates while the mother was not well. Maybe she took a turn for the worst. Maybe she deteriorated, her condition deteriorated, and
in football,
and he decided, okay, this is it now. I've got to
in
go.
football circles, you have seen players kissing the badges. They move from one club, they go to another, they kiss the badge. You have got coaches raising those issues. So it's not uncommon that you raise that. For me, the issue is you are not a doctor, so there's nothing much you're gonna do to try and heal your mother because you're not a doctor. But if you remain on the job, actually, you're gonna have the funds to pay for the doctors to treat your ill mom. So at this moment in time, for me, I think he was buying time and he wanted to get out. So I've not been able to get hold of him to try and get to know exactly what has happened. But we know at this moment in time that he's the current coach of Zamalek.
Okay, so Brian, what I'm getting from Tim is that this had nothing to, because as it happened, there was a lot of jokes that are going around on social media that, hey, Super Sport, hey, because of the 3-0 loss to Super Sport 2 days prior. So this had nothing to do with that. And according to Tim, this had nothing to do with the mother. And this was something that was premeditated. And you could argue also with the editing of the video, with the everything. It wasn't a decision that was just, hey, now let's go.
You know what I love when you bring Super Sport up is because I remember Moshine Tugra also left after the Super Sport drubbing. And it was at Mbombela Stadium as well. But his resignation was different. It was done live on air. So his was done. We all knew he's leaving immediately after the 6-1 drubbing. So what for me, what stood out when he announced that he will be leaving for personal reasons, the first thing that came to me was already had 3 cooks, 3 chefs on that bench. That was the first thing that came to me. You had him, you had Rulani Mokoena, you had Fatu Davids, you had Mahir Davids, who was sitting on a stand analyzing the game from a different point. And you also had a huge technical bench that was sitting there, And if you look at the way things were at Orlando Pirates, he had been there, didn't want anything. He had gotten them very close, but really didn't want anything. And his ambition of going to play of coaching in the North he always made it clear. But when he was there sitting, he used to talk about the badge. That, this badge is not just a badge. The Pirates badge, I am a fan before I became a coach. It was his second stint in South Africa for Pirates. He was there in the 2006-7 season, didn't work out. It didn't last that long.
Yeah.
Good news can take out of that. In 2016-2006-7, he was only here for about 200 and some odd days. He was here for over 1,000 days, for this time around as a coach. And Pirates are playing some of the most beautiful football you've seen in a long time. People went to the stadium to go and watch them. Hence, even the football of the year came from the team last season. The players play of the season of the team came from their same team. They got into the final, lost in the final against Baroka. They finished second overall behind Mamelodi Sundowns. It was such an exciting team to watch, and one expected the same to continue the season. It's just a pity that the season kicked off and these happened, and eventually he left. But it's always a story of football, isn't it? Where people tend to come out and say, I'm leaving because of personal reasons. I mean, I can take you back to the head coach of Bafana and Carlos Alberto Pereira. When he left, it was a story about him having issues at home and blah, 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 blah. He was to surface again in South Africa immediately after that, We've had issues where a coach has left from Free State Stars. You find him now already, when the Polokwane City coach then. Emmanuel. Look, he left Polokwane City saying, no, he's not going anywhere. He wants to go back home. Boom, he was in Bloemfontein Celtic. So it has been norm in South African football, South African circles in particular, that when somebody announces they're leaving and stating personal reasons, always read between the lines.
Okay. We've read between the lines. Okay, we didn't have to, because he was unveiled as head coach somewhere else pretty soon after his resignation. And Tim, it's no secret that Zamalek and coaches and the club owner, the relationship is something else. It'll be a miracle if Micho finishes this year at Zamalek.
Look, the owner of Zamalek had to make a statement, even to the Zamalek fans, and that's to try and bring in a sort of a big name coach, and I think they have been in need of Micho for some good time, but it's very interesting to know that before the unveiling of Micho, they kind of had a dummy of a presentation of another coach.
That's what confused me about the whole thing.
Yeah. Yes, that's to try and cool down the waters, and that was an indication, I think, was to try and get Mitch out of the country of South Africa before he's unveiled. So you'll have all that politics playing about in football. Yes, Zamalek doesn't keep the coaches and everything like that, but it depends on now the vision and what Micho can achieve in Zamalek. He has always wanted to coach in North Africa. The big following, very mad. If you are comparing whether the decision for Micho to leave Orlando Pirates to go for Zamalek holds water, then I think it does, given the pedigree of Zamalek.
Looking at the money he's been offered there, I would take it, guys.
I don't leave the money alone, but if
let's not even make it look like it's about the prestige of the club and everything. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but if you are going to compare in terms of, yes, money plays a very huge role, but again, you're talking about Zamalek that is always competing in the CAF Champions League, wanting to win the Champions League year in, year out. You're looking at the competition between Al Hilal and Zamalek also. That comes into play. So he has always wanted that huge challenge. And he has been a very good servant of African football. I remember when he came as a young coach, in Sports Club Villa in Uganda. I was one of his, pioneering players. And that has been his dream. Very hardworking. Take nothing that away from him. He's one coach that I've known that is a coach who will use the available resources of to make sure that he attains success. So he's not the kind of coach who's going to, buy his way to success. He will use the available resources in terms of players and the facilities to try and make it work. So when it comes to the likes of Pirates, the likes of Zamalek, they already have the material.
Yeah.
So I think that will be very great for him. What happens now, how he's going to handle the fallout from Pirates, going to Zamalek is very key for him now.
You know, for me, I mean, when I saw that he's joining Zamalek, the first thing I thought about was that Zamalek just won the CAF Confed Cup in the previous year. You know, they sacked their coach immediately after losing to Al Ahly. The rivalry between the two Egyptian teams is clear. You know that you can lose any match. But never lose to Al Ahly or finish behind Al Ahly, because the coach eventually was 8 points gap between the two teams at the end of the previous season in Egypt, and hence the coach eventually was shown the door. You know, so Micho's ambition is also wanting to win to win continental football and continental club football, and I think he realized that Zamalek present him with that, because with the Buccaneers, they've struggled. You know, they faltered in matches where they could have won easily. And he probably looked at it from a resource point of view and from the ambition of team's point of view. Probably that to be served best, because he's been at Pirates. I mean, he hasn't been there for over 1,500 days. It means he's been there for 3 seasons. Okay, that's a key thing.
But Brian, here's my issue with this whole thing, with how you guys are viewing it as his reason for leaving. And particularly the point you're making now that Zamalek is a club that in any given season, they're going for the Champions League, or a continental trophy of some sort. But didn't Micho know this at the end of last season, having claimed that they've been wanting him? Why wait for? I mean, the season is barely 5 games old.
The position, what was the position available then? The position was not available then.
But that he said an offer had been made.
Yes, but the position then, offer was made. And hence he's told him to speak to his bosses. But then nothing materialized within that time. And you know, they always say, sometimes until we actually have him talk about it openly, when he will be interviewed and really address the issues that made him leave. Because I believe that it's beyond this whole thing of personal reasons and everything else. I believe that there's more to it. You know, he has been here, he has had challenges at Orlando Pirates, he had never won anything. Besides having the best squad by far. And he believes maybe, you know, there comes a time as a man and you sit down and say, maybe I need a different challenge in a different continent, maybe in a different country. Maybe I need to look at my things differently. Maybe I need to have a different technical setup, you know, because it has always been clear from the day when Rulani was brought to Pirates, everybody's already talking about Rulani being the new head coach. Everybody's already talking about him being to be the man that takes over the horse and go forward.
Or, Tim, if you remember correctly, there's a time when Rulani was actually rumored to be the coach at Orlando Pirates. There were issues. There was talk of who is the coach at Orlando Pirates. Is Rulani actually running the show? Because you had a Bongani Zungu coming in and saying, Rulani was the coach at Sundowns and all of that.
You see, look. He played his role as an assistant, and he was playing to the girl of the media, and it became very, very interesting for the media to go along with it. Remember, he's coming from Sundowns as assistant to Pitso, who is very successful. So they would think that way. But again, for me, it was very, very diplomatic the way Micho handled it. Because Micho allowed him to be. And that, in a way, fed into that narrative that, maybe he's the one in charge. But when Fadil Davids came on board, if you're a very good student of football, you could see that whenever there was a huge celebration, there was consultation, you could see Srojovic going towards Davids. In consultation and in embrace. So you are easily, if you're a very good student of football, you could understand that something is not so very well in that technical area. You can come out and explain this and everything like this.
Between Micho and Rulani.
You could see that there was that Micho will play around. He could give you a chance. I've seen him give so many assistants a chance to do that, but he was fully in charge. He would not play to the media. He will let the football talk, and then you try to speak what he's doing on the field of play. When he comes out, you interview him, he will not give you a direct answer you're expecting. He will be very philosophical about it, and it's you to try and take it out. And I remember one time he did say, yes, he's one for the future. Now, what is important is, at this moment in time, is for Rulani to embrace this chance and do the talking on the field of play and leave embracing the media.
Is he on audition? Is he on audition from Saturday in the cup game and coming now into the continental match because they're already trailing in this tie? Is this his audition?
You know, if you look at it, I mean, a caretaker job, you know that you're sitting there already. There's somebody who's supposed to be eyed for the job. So if you want to take over as the main man, you need to raise your hand. You need to show what you can do. You need to prove that you need to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you are up for the job and you can do very well. I mean, I love the way Peter came out strongly to say he supports him, and he even spoke to him to say, you know, he's going to be giving me a call again to have a chat with him about it, to say, you know, you must be given a chance as first of all, as a black coach, as a young black coach. And that's number one. Number two is that Peter spoke purely to say that he's a very good coach. He understands the modern game. And that is very important from a Pirates point of view, to have him sitting on a bench, and that if given the right support, he can go places, you know. So we don't know whether it was Peter saying it because there has been a massive fractures between the two of them, or is he saying it purely because he believes that is the story, you know. And for me, there has been a lot of talk about Rulani from the days he left Sundowns to come and join Orlando Pirates, that he's the one for the future. I've known him as a coach at school football. You know, he was a coach of Clapham. Clapham that produced your Pesitaus. You can mention players that came from Clapham. There are a lot of players that actually eventually found themselves playing for Sundowns, that came from their team of Clapham. You know, so he has produced plenty of stars from Clapham as part of the Sundowns setup, to eventually graduate and be where he is in a moment. Those that know him well, they call him Mourinho, because they say he's got a thinking and the way that he does things, the modern way, and he's very aggressive. He's bullish about what he does.
Yeah. But for me, you know, when you talk about grooming players, there are two different things. You know, I'm grooming a player and leasing him to Pitsom's money, and then Pitsom's money makes it a finished product. And now he is in charge of unearthing this talent and make sure that talent delivers. For me, what is key? Is Rulani getting into the minds of the Pirates players to play for him first before they play for the club. If he's able to do that, he's going to ride this challenge now.
I want to ask you something. I want to ask you a question.
Please do.
When you were playing as a player, when you scored a goal, when you celebrate with the bench, who did you go to? Was it a head coach? Was it assistant coach? Or was it your teammates? Or how did you... Let's say you were going to the bench after scoring a goal. You went to celebrate. You're going to the bench. Who would you go and give credit to?
Look, it's not in particular of an individual. It's more for the team. You know, I've seen so many players sometimes running to the coach, embracing this and this and this. But it's more for the team. It depends on the attitude of the player. You know, some want to show that they are appreciating the coach. But for me, that is different.
But from what Brian is saying...
I'm asking you a question. We
have to move on. But from what he's saying, it suggests that as a player, whomever you choose to celebrate with after scoring a goal, as a person you feel that he has made a contribution to the success that we're having.
So if
true. I go and celebrate with Brian as the assistant coach and pass you
as the coach,
then it says a lot about what is happening
I agree
at
with
the
that.
club.
I agree with that. But also, there is, in the football setup, you'll find that a player is more comfortable with Brian as an assistant coach. You'll find that as an assistant coach, you can get the point across. We had it at Bidvest Vets, whereby Roger would feel comfortable to speak to Eric, and Eric will reach out to maybe a one Inyeni to exactly deliver what Roger wants Inyeni to do. So you'll find that the personality of Coach Roger was more, bullish, very authoritative to the likes of some players. So you could find that Eric could pass on that, that communication very well to the players. So it all comes about to the understanding of the technical team.
No, guys, we've got to move on. It's a situation that is very strange that is happening at Orlando Pirates, and we'll continue to certainly look at what is happening there and update everyone across the continent. Now, sticking with Southern Africa. Okay, Brian. Philip Chiangwa was the president of ZIFA, and Philip Chiangwa was dethroned by Felton Kamambo.
Yeah.
And things haven't been rosy since then. But Philip Chiangwa stayed in his position as president of COSAFA.
Yes.
And now there's an issue because earlier this year, and I remember we covered this thing in, an extensive way, when the COSAFA Senior Men's Cup was supposed to be in Zimbabwe, and it ended up being in Durban, South Africa.
Yeah.
And COSAFA fined Zimbabwe, and ZIFA claimed, no, we knew nothing about this. The minister, Kirsty Coventry, said, we just can't. So now ZIFA has come and said, Chief, you are banned from everything for life. And from there, it's been one thing after another, and Chiangwa has even gone to FIFA.
If you just to add on to that, do you remember that even now, there's still an issue between COSAFA and ZIFA. Yeah. They've said to them, unless they show when they're going to be able to host the tournament, they will be banned. So that is already hanging. They need to sort that out within the next year to make sure that they're able to host a tournament. I think if you look at, the latest news is about the bank eventually saying, you know what, it's not going to happen anymore. So there have been issues. And I think this is my biggest problem with leadership of the beautiful game on the continent, is when you find an issue that people are fighting to hold on to power. Even when you have been ousted in a form of a vote, you have lost, you still want to hang on and fight and want to come back.
A legal election.
And find manners and ways to say there were certain things that were not done proper and everything else. Until we understand on the continent that it is not our birthright to sit and be leaders forever, we will not be able to achieve a lot of things we want to achieve. The fact that a bank eventually came up and said, you know what, we can't do this anymore, withholding the funds, that's a problem. Because how do you run an association when the bank is saying we got issues with you, and there are issues with the hotels that you're owing hotels, and there's one executive fighting another executive, and there are issues with the organization's part of the team, the NEC is in disarray. So I believe that, unless there's a serious intervention and the fact that Dr. Philip Chiangwa is actually gone to FIFA, it means that he knows that Chiangwa knows that he will be able to get some help from that side. But for me, we shouldn't even have a situation to even go that far. We should be dealing with matters within. When you're in an election process, if you lose out, let's move on. But you don't know the details about what happened when it comes to elections.
I don't know if you had a chance to look at that long letter that Philip Chiangwa sent to FIFA, Tim. Does he have a leg to stand on? Brian says maybe he knows that he's got something or someone he can rely on inside FIFA. Does he have something that is legal that we can say, oh, okay, ZIFA, no, you can't do this?
Look, at the end of the day, they passed a resolution to ban him for life. That is the federation. And I think when you're banned for life, you try to and find reason why you are banned. And if it's not, you try to free yourself because you're in football. But it's very important to note at this moment in time that he's banned for having, accepted that Zimbabwe will host COSAFA tournament. So without the government guarantee. So in that case, he feels is not reason enough because he was the federation president. There was an opportunity to host the tournament of COSAFA. He's the COSAFA president. So he went ahead with that. And then at this moment in time, he loses the...
So he spoke to himself.
He loses the
two heads.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
he was the president of ZIFA and spoke to himself as the president of COSAFA and agreed with himself.
Yes.
That
we need to bring this in my country.
And now,
okay.
And listen, he loses the bid to become to be reappointed. So now COSAFA is banning the federation. That's a new leadership. So the new leadership is as if is retaliating to this. But for me, what the biggest player right now, we're having the Sports Commission coming into play right now that is trying to clean up the sports, sports in the country, and that's led by Coventry. She was a former, swimmer for the country. So they have already banned, they took an aggressive approach to ban cricket, and the Cricket Association has banned the country from participating. So at this moment in time, they are requesting FIFA to intervene and set up a normalization committee. So if you have got a situation where the federation,
by now,
but I think it's not welcome. This shows, the Administrative Council on the African continent, we are showing our highest level of ineptness when it comes to administration and running football in a whole on this country. So in southern region, it shouldn't be happening. We're having, Zimbabwean players dominating the PSL. Most of the experts are here and great talent. So you cannot be having, such a big football powering house in a disarray like that. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to have a normalization committee by FIFA in Zimbabwe taking shape.
That's been the problem. We find ourselves there every second month. There's a normalization committee coming into the continent to deal with certain things. I mean, the ban, if you look at the ban from ZIFA, it doesn't only apply to the Philip Chiangwa alone. It also goes to the Omega Sibanda, the assistant. I saw a video footage not so long ago where one of the administrators was told to leave the office. And he was literally swearing and saying he's not going to leave that office. If you want me out, you're a young man, we'll see what will happen. So this is how bad things have become. That people are clinging on to power even when it's not supposed to be happening. So for me, we're just not doing ourselves any favors, because if we want to be taken serious by the rest of the world, we need to clean up our act. We need to make sure that, because now you need to be having, this shouldn't even be sitting at FIFA. We should have been CAF intervening now and dealing with the matter.
But CAF is under FIFA at this moment in time. So.
No, but they have their own problems also, understand that. But I'm saying it should have been done. It should have been done internally, because the fact that ZIFA has eventually, why didn't we need to have it? For me, I would like to see a situation where there's a problem within one organization or association, that we are able to go to the neighboring association and try to get them to intervene and help and assist in trying to sort out the problem before you even escalate that to the world governing body.
And also, I think, Brian, it brings into question another element: whether is it time now that FIFA should ban, government involvement in football, so that government becomes entirely involved, because we are talking about the national team. This is the symbol of the nation, and you're saying government should not be involved in football. So this is creating the so-called the big name individuals who think that they can make a decision like this, banning the national team and banning players just like that without thinking about the repercussions of the national team. But I think it's very interesting. FIFA itself, I think, has planted a seed into the federation members to act as if there's no consequence for
them. So there's some sort of delusions of grandeur.
Yes, that it's so true, because they believe that they can make any decision because the government cannot ban them or affect them.
What does this say about Felton Kamambo if indeed the government gets their way and has FIFA appointing a normalization committee? What does it say about his reign?
Listen, Nari, to be serious, it will be in limbo. It will be in limbo, because if you realize, if you look at the way things have been run at the moment, if normalization committee come in, you must know that then, financially, everything that you would have, you wouldn't have control of those. Mm-hmm. Do remember that at the moment, that the ban for 2020 for COSAFA is still standing until ZIFA can present themselves that they'll be able to host the tournament. So already from where he's sitting, because the initial person who agreed for the hosting, he's not part of this. Yeah. And the current president is saying, no, we didn't want this. So you already have a problem, because it means you could have a situation where there's no Zimbabwe at all in 2020 for all COSAFA tournaments.
Yes. It's very interesting at this moment in time, because once the normalization committee comes in, then he has no leg to stand on. And, and for me, it goes deep. You start asking the question: what is the composition of the delegates that elected these people? Some of these African Football Association delegates are potato growers, whereby they cannot even make decisions, with a right frame of mind. They are coerced into voting for a certain individual, and then they start lamenting afterwards. They are not pro-football. They are looking at it more as a job opportunity.
What are you saying about Peter growers?
No.
Are you saying they can't get involved in sport now?
No, Brian, it's true, and I will defend that. We have got that. For example, for example, in Uganda, we had the Minister of Sports,
Yes.
trying to attend the conference, the delegates conference, and he realized that some of these gentlemen cannot even present themselves or understand what was taking place, and he named them as potato growers. So it is a word coming from a sports minister. So you have people with money who are buying off these so-called delegates to vote them. So it's not pro-football. We have got in situations whereby every international game that is played, you have got those delegates getting bonuses, as a way of compensation. We have got Zimbabwe. We had the federation president taking some of the delegates, thanking them for the vote to Egypt. He can name it as a so-called fact-finding mission, but not at that moment in time when the players are not being paid, when your own players are footing their own bills.
Okay. Speaking of all these normalization committees and fact-finding missions, now we know that Egypt also has a normalization committee, guys. Egypt of all people. And you'll remember that during AFCON, the Pharaohs lose to Bafana Bafana. 1-0 in Cairo. And the coach was gone within a matter of hours. The president of the FA was gone within a matter of hours. And by the morning, they had started falling like dominoes. The board members, everyone. And from there, what happened, Brian? Because now we hear that FIFA is now handling the matter there.
But if you look at this, there's going to be that's for the tenor until 2020 June. It's going to be running this. I think for me, there's always been problems with the Egyptians. You remember the story that we're talking about Fati coming out and fighting, and eventually it went all the way to the top because of how things were handled in Egyptian football. The fact that they even hosted the AFCON tournament for me was surprising. Because I thought then with the problems that they're having already at that stage, that probably the tournament will move to somebody else, to be hosted by somebody else different from that. And I still remember we had one Egyptian journalist here in studio when we spoke about the problems that they're having that is coming from the legacy that the Egyptian football has had over the years. And then how the corruption that has happened within the federation has not been dealt with over the years, and how that is going to affect Egyptian football going forward. And hence when people got fired or people resigned after the World Cup, after the AFCON tournament, I was not surprised because there were issues before the AFCON even started. How they even got to the AFCON and played, that for me was still surprising. How they were able to get things going as an FA was still surprising, and hence when they started falling and leaving, I realized, okay, yeah, it is coming out finally.
I think it was safe to say that it was not more of the FA organizing the tournament. It was more of a political will.
Yes, it was always about that.
I think the government wanted to try and portray themselves back to to the world that they are great towards this nation after the Arab uprising. But again, they conducted a wonderful AFCON. But again, no one expected them to lose in the last 16 against Bafana. So the FA president, under moral obligation, he made a decision to step down. And so the board members, they were enormous, just falling apart. So at this moment in time, now we have the Bureau of the FIFA Council coming to appoint a nominalization committee that has been tasked to try and review the Egyptian Football Association statutes and even try to get the new ones and see if they can rhyme them.
But do these
with
things
FIFA.
work, Tim? Because forever we've had one in Ghana, and they were tasked with, and you spoke of a deadline earlier, Brian. There was a deadline for the normalization committee in Ghana, and it was extended because they had not achieved whatever they needed to achieve. We were told August or something like that, or September. I'm not too sure. Nothing has worked in this normalization committee. They brought in Semi Kufo. They tried to put together a competition just before AFCON. There was guns there. There was commotion. Do they ever work?
You know what people always look at, and I think one of the reasons why you'll find association eventually agreeing to have these normalization committees and all of that, because they know that if they don't do that, funding will stop from FIFA. So for you to still be able to get funding, you need to therefore be seen to be taking part, to be wanting to resolve the problem and get to the solution. But also, we can never run away from the fact that football on the continent is still politicized. It is still run in a political way. There's still government involvement in every department, because some of the ministers or some of the people who were eventually employed or eventually find themselves in position in football are mostly government people, are people that are related, that are somehow linked to government at some stage, and they know that if I need money from Minister of Sport, I will get it easy because he's my comrade. As opposed to an academic who's going to walk in there and be a football person and sitting in there. It's a different ball game. I mean, if you look at, the fact that one of the members, the new members that we brought in for the Egyptian FA was one of the organizing committee members for the AFCON. So it do show that these are the people that made sure that AFCON was a success. But the AFCON also had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Because remember, the only matches which were packed were those when Egypt played. Immediately after Egypt left the tournament, it was a massive problem for them to try and get fans to the stadium.
Even for all the other North African
it was a problem.
Teams,
because it shows that they had the support for the national team, which was garnered because of the LOC coming out and saying, we need to support this, we need to show the world what we can do and everything else. Immediately after that, when they were knocked out, they said, okay, what are we going there for now?
Normalization committees are, for me, it has to begin with a particular country. Is that the desire to develop football? Normally, it doesn't work. Why? Because, yes, like Brian has alluded to the fact that they're going to miss the FIFA funding, but more so is the fact that the national team is going to be missing to play in this tournament. So it is hardly organized a meeting with the so-called political powers that be and the rallying individuals, and they try to patch up a committee and say, okay, we're going to have elections and something like that. So it is not always to go down to be very successful. So when there is always that individual who is still battling with the fact that what would they have agreed upon, he's bound to go back to the same case like we have had in Nigeria.
Yeah.
The nomination committee will come and then they do the elections. But again, that person, if he's not happy again, he will push the same pattern to try and cause havoc with that. So I think FIFA at this moment in time also, I think they are so hasty to try and come into the African affairs. I think we should be able to build capacity to deal with our own affairs, to try and grow the game of football. If we continue at the rate at which we are going, where even the head, that is CAF, is under FIFA administration, it is really worrying. It is the highest level of ineptness. I think Asayat, whoever is seated, he must be shaking his head.
Okay, my only thing is that I'm hoping one of these days we'll hear of a normalization committee that has completed its mission wherever they were deployed, and we are back to normal running of football by an elected
it is Sierra Leone.
FA or whatever.
It is Sierra Leone now. Issa Johnson is back as the FA president.
No, but that had to go. That also had to go through. No.
So the number
anyway,
was effective.
Anyway, you touched on Nigeria in your closing argument there, and it brings me to Samson Siasia. Guys, this past week there's been breaking news after breaking news. Samson Siasia is banned for life from any football activities, and this time not by the NFF or his home association. FIFA has said, Chief, you're out.
Do you remember a gentleman known as Wilson Raj Pemba?
That name always goes.
Why does he always come up? Why does he always come up?
FIFA names him as the known fixer, match fixer.
I still remember a game I covered for South Africa. And the Guatemala game, and I was raving about the historical win for South Africa for Bafana Bafana, only to be told afterward that hey, that game. Perumal was there, you know. Only to be told that Winston Raj was there. Raj was in charge. You know, so on a serious note, on a serious note, I mean, for me, we expected so much from Seston Siasia, and the fact that he had played very well as a striker for Nigeria, and he had done very well as a player. And when he took over the youth team, to eventually find himself coaching the senior team between the 2016 period, where the problem started, because 2016, between 2010 and 2016, that was when Puroma was really running things. He was getting things sorted out in between all of that.
But you see, Brian, we should be very careful. You know, and the case of Siasia is very interesting.
Yeah.
Here is a gentleman, they come to you and they say, you know, as a coach of a national team, would you maybe take a bribe to throw a game? And you say, yes, I can. I can do it. If I can, I can. So it is not per se that, yes, he took money.
No, I understand that.
But he violated the FIFA rules by agreeing that
there's a possibility I can
in
do
a given opportunity,
I can do it.
He can do it.
Yes.
And you know, the adjudicatory chamber of FIFA has found him guilty for that.
But guys, from what he's already saying, Siasia, I can already see Cass. I can already see the Court of Arbitration for Sport, because it looks like it's the modus operandi for anyone who is fingered by FIFA to say, no, but I'm clear.
But let's be honest.
I'm going just to save face.
But Benji,
sometimes
let's be honest. There shouldn't be room for you to fix a game. There shouldn't. You're a coach, you're a legend of the game. It's not acceptable anywhere. So there is no discussion of if you can. You shouldn't. It's simple and clear. So at this moment in time, yes, he's guilty of violating the FIFA code of conduct. So, for Siasia, listen, you can come about how we play the game and everything like that, but as an administrator, you are the custodian of the law. And he has broken it.
But also, I mean, coming in there when a team, the fact that when he was asked that question, he alluded to the fact that if there's a possibility he would. You know, whether he did it or not, it's immaterial.
Yeah.
Because the story will always say, you have shown that you are not a fair person, that if given an opportunity.
Are capable of such
and also, nobody knows whether the results were you were in charge. Even though he might have lost those legitimately. They'll come up and say, but that one, we're not sure about that one.
Okay, gentlemen, we're quickly running out of time, so we need to keep it moving. Let's talk about Botswana. There's good news. I think it's good news. Coming
in the ears of the players.
Yes.
Very good news.
Good news, because, I mean,
it's long overdue.
Tim, we've worked with you guys.
It's long overdue.
For some time. And what's happening in Botswana right now is that they have threatened, they have, you know, I don't know if it's a threat or a warning, that you don't pay players, you will be relegated. And this is, some would call it a harsh measure, you know, but necessary.
There are two folds to that. You know, I during my time covering some of the matches, the qualifiers for the World Cup of the AFCON, I think the biggest problem that Botswana is facing now, because even most of the managers have come out to say BFA must pay them in time.
Yeah.
Correct. That is where they're they're squarely putting the blame at the doorstep of BFA to say if the country's association releases funds to us early enough, we'll be able to pay people. We won't have these issues of players being owed, because Township Rollers now is a team that is in serious trouble.
Yeah.
If they don't sort themselves out, Township Rollers will be lost. And Township Rollers is one of the biggest teams in Botswana, alongside your Gaborone United. You know, so Gaborone United was already fined by FIFA for a similar infringement of not paying a player, a Ghanaian player, Bismarck. You know, so when you look at the way things have been done overall, I believe that somehow the associations need to come up and do what needs to be done. Because, you know, unlike in South Africa, where the PSL runs football, and football teams rely teams in a national in the Absa Premiership, and the teams in a Glad Africa are being run by the PSL. The rest of the pack are being run by SAFA. In Botswana, it's a different ball game, because BFA runs literally everything in Botswana. So, you know, they are coming up with a very strong thing to say, if BFA gives them money early enough, we'll be able to play players. But I think that just don't hold water from my point of where I'm sitting. I've seen players who have gone hungry because of very greedy and selfish administrators who'd rather take the money and keep the money, not paying the players. And that, for me, is good news, not only for the players, but it's good news for football in general. Because then people need to be held accountable to say, if you employ me, pay me for my services.
And there's nothing worse than being relegated, Tim.
Look, at this moment
as punishment.
I think Botswana is implementing the CAF licensing, rules very well. I think they have been good students. But now it comes into the implementation, like Brian has alluded to, the fact that the clubs are saying that wouldn't be a problem if the federation do release, that money that is due to the clubs. That wouldn't be an issue. But at this moment in time, being a player at this moment in time, I think that's very good news. I'm interested more in the implementation part, because if the clubs are implementing the federation, then they're going to have a problem. The federation will have, very huge challenges trying to implement the relegation of teams. No team deserves to be relegated. But again, we are looking at the likes of, rollers to be relegated. It's going to have a huge impact on Botswana football. So I think they're going to try to find a way where they can get maybe the government coming on board to subsidize the clubs, and then I think they can have it right. But I think if the rule is passed and implemented well, it augurs well for Africa, for African football on this. This continent.
Is it now something that all of us should be looking at and looking to implement in the different leagues? Because it happens. There was points docked for a club, for Amazulu. So it's not like there's, because the PSL has this thing of priding itself as being the most organized league. So it is not immune to such things. No. So they do happen. Yeah. So is it something that should be implemented and copied by other leagues to say, okay, Botswana is leading, is pioneering something that we can look at?
I think indeed, if you're looking to make sure that you deal with issues and matters are handled properly, you need to make sure that there's serious penalties for teams who don't abide to the rules.
Yeah,
fair game. If you want a player to play for you and you want a player to remain loyal to you, then do what is important. Pay the player. Due diligence. That all needs to be done. It doesn't even have to get to a level where you are relegated because you didn't pay a player for a job that you have employed them for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. I think it's long overdue. I think the PSL should implement that. So that would have sorted out, Bloemfontein Celtic a long time last season.
Your former team.
So I think, yes, Botswana, has, announced, that introduction. That I think the PSL should also adopt that. I think they've got those challenges. Because they had it with Amazulu, it had to go all the way to FIFA before the PSL administrators could try and handle that. But I think it's good for football on the African continent. My question is the implementation.
All right, gentlemen, let's close it out with good news that is coming out of South Africa, is that this weekend is the one. This weekend is finally the one.
The Brian's baby.
We were it's been promise after promise, Brian, that the National Women's League will start. Even this month, it was initially by SAFA. They had said that the 9th of August, which is Women's Day in South Africa, will be the day. That didn't happen. But now we hear that Soweto, Pimville, that's the place to be this coming week.
I mean, they did explain exactly why they had to postpone that a few times. First of all, it was because Banyana were involved in a FIFA World Cup, and they were allowing them much time to be able to prepare for that. And also because in June it was the World Cup itself. In 9th August, they were still in the middle of the COSAFA Women's Championship and the COSAFA Women's Under-20 Championship happening in PE. So hence, they also moved away from that. And they were also hoping that they could have already had some sponsors by now to be able to announce that this is what the prize money will be, this is what will be giving the players and so forth. But that hasn't happened. Only Gauteng province has come up and raised their hands and said, we will host the first one. So all 12 teams that are taking part in this tournament will start playing this weekend. So there'll be 6 matches. There'll be 6 teams in both days. So it will be 3 matches each day. So that's a good news from where you are sitting. And also, if you look at this, all 9 provinces will be presented, plus the 2 invited teams, which are professional setup, Mamelodi Sundowns and Bloemfontein Celtic Ladies. And also TUT, as the reigning champions, have been invited from a varsity point of view. And UJ, who has just won the varsity side, have also been invited. So next year, we're going to see an addition of 2 more teams. Those that do very well in the SASO National League that takes place in a month. There's always that National League that just happens.
So it's a feeder league.
The feeder league. The 2 teams will be promoted into the National Women's League also next year. And there won't be any relegated team next year. And a year later, there'll be 2 more until we get 16. Then after that, there'll be a relegation process where 2 from the SASO League will come in and 2 will be relegated. So it is looking very good. I mean, so it also comes at a good time where when you also remember that CAF has spoken about the fact that the next AFCON is coming up, will move from 8 to 12 countries. So it's a very good thing. And also it's also in line with what CAF is thinking about. Because amongst the people who were invited today was Jacqueline Kertz, who come from Namibia, who was talking solely about what CAF is looking at. The under-17 AFCON is coming up for women. The under-20 AFCON is coming up for women. And also they want to focus on making sure that we have things going. And also the mission to have 1 million ladies playing football by 2022 is the biggest thing for SAFA. So this is in line with that.
How long is it? Is it something for now that we're saying baby steps? We can't have the full 10 months. Is it
22 matches in total is what you're looking at the moment?
Look, I think it's the best thing that can happen to South African football, especially ladies football. Banyana has been very, very successful. They've just won, the SAFA tournament for the 3rd consecutive time. So you look at this great successful team, and they never had a league, but yet they have produced, year in, year out, wonderful players. They've started marketing them to European teams. So this anchors well to try and promote a girl child to play football and, try to join in this national cake. If you look at the PSL in comparison to the Women's League, I think the women's football had been blacked out at this moment in time. Yes, we have not heard about the sponsorship, the prize monies and monthly awards, but the fact that it has taken shape, I think the sponsors will come on board and greater things will come. And I'm sure with SAFA bidding to host the World Cup, Women's World Cup, I think this all falls in line with their vision. And I think kudos to SAFA and all parties involved.
Gentlemen, that's unfortunately our time. That's where we're going to leave it for today. But we do hope that all goes well and it grows. The SA National Women's League, long overdue.
Yeah.
And we've been, it's been more than 10 years. I hear people saying 10 years of waiting. It's been more than 10 years. How long have you had women in this country playing football? Forever. But thank you so much for your time. Thanks to Brian Mofokeng as well as Timothy Batabare for your time, gentlemen. My name is Benjamin Leshuro, and this has been African Football. And we're back again, and I say we are very loosely.
Is that the application of Italian?
I say we're back very loosely. Back next week at the same time. Thank you so much for being with us. You can continue talking to us on Twitter. It is #FranFootball. And whatever questions you have on the subjects that we touched on, we'll be able to answer them in the social media streets. For now, good night.